Thanks for downloading this edition of The Y Factor from the BBC, a programme that seeks to find out why we do the things we do. I hope you enjoy it.
Love will not be constrained by mastery. When mastery comes, the god of love anon beateth his wings, and farewell, he is gone. Love is a thing as any spirit free.
The Canterbury Tales, the 14th century collection of stories by Geoffrey Chaucer that played a huge role in defining the ideals of courtly love and romance that have become familiar throughout the West. I read them as a student, and so did my grandfather, 60 years before me, when he studied at Cambridge University on a colonial scholarship. He'd grown up in a busy village in what's now Ghana, steeped in the traditions of his African ancestors. But at Cambridge, he was fascinated by Chaucer. He returned to Ghana, wanting to marry for love, and wooed my grandmother with letters and gifts. They were part of a new generation, merging both Western and African concepts of romantic love.
He fixed at last upon a certain one, and let all others from his heart be gone, and chose her on his own authority, for love is always blind and cannot see.
This is the BBC World Service, and I'm Afua Hirsch. Today on The Y Factor, romance. What is it, and why is it such an enduring concept, especially in a world where some of us are more likely to swipe an app than experience anything Chaucer would recognise? Do romance's ancient roots conflict with modern ideas about gender, love, and sexuality?
First, I noticed his big, bright eyes. He had this huge smile. He just beamed.
This is Eddie Outlaw from Jackson, Mississippi, in the US.
I went down to the Peabody Hotel in downtown Memphis, to the salon and spa there, where my friend Kirsten worked. She wasn't there that day, but Justin was at the front desk. I was definitely, I was struck right there.
Well,
and this is Justin.
After a few moments of speaking to one another, he left and bebopped up the stairs, and I remember immediately picking up the phone and calling Kirsten, wanting to know who was this guy. But as the day wore on, I got a phone call, and I answered, and he very cutely asked if he could make an appointment to take me out to dinner one night. And so we went out that very night. He was that person that you just felt like you had to get to know a little more of and understand where this light was coming from.
It is a powerful cocktail of novelty and excitement and pleasure and euphoria. It's basically like being addicted to a drug.
Sarah Merrill teaches the science of sex and attachment at Cornell University in the United States.
Romance is an important and frankly necessary part of what we scientifically call infatuation. They are both universal experiences for humans across time and across the globe. From a neurochemical perspective, really, this is driven by dopamine. And it's really the motivational part of the reward system that pushes us towards that goal, and is the part that is about energy and excitement and what we think of as desire and passion, and is also highly involved in our motor system that allows us to move and actually propels us forward.
We may not think of romance as a chemical experience, but science shows that it is universally hardwired into our biology. So what about the cultural expectations that go along with these feelings? Why do so many of us associate romantic love with food, gifts, or poems?
The 18th and 19th centuries became known as the sentimental revolution of the modern age due to transformation of conception of love.
Psychologist Viktor Karandashev has spent his life studying answers to these questions. Now at Aquinas College, Michigan, in America, he's the author of Romantic Love in Cultural Contexts.
Music, dance, poetry, books, small gifts and flowers were the sentimental expression of love.
an expression often epitomised in the work of romantic poet Lord Byron.
Can I forget? Canst thou forget, when playing with thy golden hair, how quick thy fluttering heart did move? Oh, by my soul I see thee yet, with eyes so languid, breasts so fair, and lips, though silent, breathing love.
So since that time, romantic love is closely associated with something idealistic, something beautiful. So this is the origin and the modern understanding of romantic love. Culture is what makes passionate love romantic.
Why is it I never see African couples in these romance novels? And I kind of ask myself, is it that we don't fall in love? Is it that we're not romantic?
Kiru Taye grew up in Nigeria and is the author of more than 20 romance novels. She was frustrated with the exclusively Western, white characters in romance fiction and left her business career to write her own stories.
I remember I had a conversation with my friends, and we kind of joke about it because some African women will say, well, who wants flowers? It's like, it's like, is flowers going to feed me or whatever? So in terms of contextually, romance might be slightly different for an African to a European woman. But it doesn't mean that there isn't romance. And I wasn't seeing that in those books. I wanted to read stories that reflected my own experiences and the experiences of people that I knew.
So can you give us any examples of things that you've been able to create through your writing that kind of represent an African version of romance?
Okay, it's called His Treasure, and it's my first published book, and set in pre-colonial West Africa. Okay, so today, everybody was dressed in their finest regalia. Adaku was dressed in her best too. Her final choice, a fabric, a surprise to even her. She'd had an eye on a new fabric displayed in the market a few weeks ago. Obinna had agreed she could make the purchase. However, when she'd awoken the other day to find the most beautiful fabric next to her in bed, she'd known there was only one choice. It was woven with rich red and gold threads and felt soft to the touch. She wondered how Obinna acquired it. She'd never seen a more intricate design of fabric before. So she's asked her husband for money to buy some fabric, but he's actually ordered for a special fabric to be woven for her. That's romantic. That's special.
No, I can relate to that. I mean, that would be a real turn on, much more than somebody buying you a bunch of flowers that eventually are going to die, and then you're going to have to sweep up the dead petals and throw away, and then it's just another job to do. So true, I think that's actually really romantic.
It is.
We're speaking to Kiru at her mum Chris's house. That's an interesting shape. Flower beds in the middle.
Well, that's the heart, and that was devised by my husband. And
we got talking about her experience growing up in Nigeria in the 1960s.
Romance is not the fore thing, if you like. It's not really, people get married without what is romance. Yeah. You get married. And, you are expected to get married. And romance was something that developed within the marital home. And as a teenager in the 60s, I did experience it. Hold in hand. Believe you me, hold in hand meant a lot. That's romance.
I still remember the first time Justin and I held hands. I think it was in New Orleans on Bourbon Street. There's one end of Bourbon Street where there's a collection of gay bars, and we kind of settle into each other, the same gait, the same posture. Eventually a hand finds the other.
And what does it mean to you? Why do you value being able to hold hands?
We didn't grow up with the ability to do that. My personal experience is that having grown up in that small Mississippi Delta town, feeling like you don't belong in a certain place, I think the worst thing for me was not being able to see anyone like myself. Not only did I not have a positive image in television and film, but I couldn't point across the room to anyone like me. So something as simple as holding hands or even leaning into each other, it's something that I didn't have or couldn't experience for so long.
Eddie and Justin are proud that they've created their own version of love and romance, set within the sometimes hostile atmosphere of America's Deep South. But are we too quick to associate romance with heterosexual Western norms? It can seem as if Western culture has a monopoly on the concept of romance.
Actually, it is not true. The idea, if not the word, of romantic love was known for centuries.
Viktor Karandashev again.
In particular, romance of love in ancient Egypt. The great pharaohs built marvelous temples and tombs for their beloved as symbols of their feelings. And love poems depicted activities such as retrieving the best fish for your beloved one, as well as worship of the beloved one.
Oh my God, my lotus flower. I love to go and bathe before you. I allow you to see my beauty in a dress of the finest linen, drenched with fragrant unguent. I go down into the water to be with you, and come up to you again with a red fish, looking splendid on my fingers. I place it before you.
I think, romantically speaking, we've kind of gone from a very passionate paso doble to kind of a slow and steady waltz.
Eddie and Justin have now been together for 15 years.
I was an established hairdresser and had money to burn when we met, and a romantic gesture would be planning a 5-course dinner for the two of us with wine pairings. These days it might be me finding a sale on socks, which Justin is very fond of, and coming home with a bag full. And from time to time he'll sneak home from Whole Foods with my favorite fish.
As far as romance goes, it is still very important to Eddie and I. That need to connect, the need to step out of our everyday life, but together, and it holds that bond and that bind to one another.
What would humanity look like without romance?
Well, I think that we would find that sex would still be rewarding in a very similar fashion, but that we wouldn't necessarily have the same impetus to be in relationships and maintain those relationships. And I believe that that is really at the core what evolutionarily is important about courting and romance, is that it keeps us together. And the reason that that has an evolutionary significance is that we as a species have altricial young, which means that our babies, our infants, are helpless. They can't even pick their heads up by themselves. So because they are so helpless and they need constant care, having a biparental system from an evolutionary perspective is very helpful. So whether or not you're actually, as an individual, having a child, the fact that those children needed this care thousands and thousands of years ago is what is determining these brain mechanisms. But you absolutely can have passion and desire or romance and, that kind of excitement in your relationship as time goes on.
You guys are supposed to be walking out.
15 years ago, we never thought we'd see it in our lifetime. We just hoped that things would get better, that, we would work hard and keep our heads down and not make a fuss.
Okay, on behalf of Justin and Eddie, I'd like to welcome you to the joining of these two hearts in marriage. Justin and
Our wedding was so special. Everything about it, Eddie and I touched and had a hand in.
And Eddie, will you have Justin to be your husband, your soulmate, and your one true love?
I will.
It's still the most special day of my life.
By the power vested in me by the state of California, I now pronounce you husbands. Kiss your husband.
Is this kind of a timeless, eternal fact, the way that our bodies and our minds process romance, or is it something that you can see changing in the future?
These are systems that are in our brains and will be in our brains, I think, forever. However, how we choose our partners, the pools in which we have to choose our partners, is significantly different.
Dating apps and websites have completely transformed the romantic landscape. People can now choose from thousands of potential partners from all over the world. So for the millennial, is there still a place, or even the time, for romance? I went to a singles event in central London to find out. Hello! Hi, you must be Geordie. Hi, I'm Martha. There's a lot of chairs set out in a circle, big gap in the middle. There's a board on every seat. Can you tell me what's going on here?
Yes, we are having our awesome singles life drawing class. Life drawing. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun.
Geordie Sinclair is the CEO of Smudged Lipstick and is running tonight's event.
We started the company so that people could meet each other and get to know someone for who they actually are via something fun, which is the way it always used to be back in the days before the whole landscape changed with technology.
So everybody's just getting ready for the drawing class to begin now. They're helping themselves to pencils. Everybody's maybe slightly anxiously kind of leaving their comfort zone and going to sit next to a complete stranger. Can we ask you how it's going?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've tried dating apps and I haven't got on very well with them, so I thought I liked the idea of coming to an activity where it wasn't so much pressure.
Everyone's looking for that certain tick list. If you don't meet the tick list, that's it, you're out, even without trying.
Oh God, I'm on all the dating apps. I went through a phase of being very excited by them when I first moved to London. I was like, oh my God, look how many men there are.
I mean, my idea of romance was that the girl of my dreams would swan into somewhere and they'd completely suck the air out of my lungs as soon as I saw them, and that was my goal. But I did actually download my first dating app about 2 weeks ago. I know. Dun, dun, dun. Mostly because of my time. I just don't have the time at the moment to really focus as much as I'd like to meeting people organically. So I thought, you know what, everybody's doing it. So I've got to give it a try.
So I think there's probably been two really significant transitions in the last 4 million years that have affected human courtship and relationships.
Justin Garcia is an evolutionary biologist and sex researcher from Indiana University in the US.
One being the agricultural revolution, somewhere between 8,000 and 12,000 years ago, the shift from hunter and gathering type societies to more sedentary agricultural changed the types of resources that people had that were involved in their transactions, in their relationships. Relationships and courtship processes were tied to other types of social and economic factors. The other major transition, I think, that we're just really beginning to understand how it's influencing the way we connect, for good and bad, is the internet. In the U.S., in our big Singles in America study, we found that more people met their most recent first date through a website or a dating app than any other category, more than friends, than church, than school. That's totally new. It's new in terms of millennia of dating and mating processes. It does fundamentally change the rules and the process by which we engage in courtship.
Would you say we still live in a romantic age?
You know that, to say honestly, the allure of romance has declined since now many people are less idealistic and more pragmatic. Some people, including my daughter and granddaughter, do not like my using the word romantic. I believe that in the Western culture some estrangement of love and sex occurs. The word sexy dominates in the modern language over the word beautiful, and much more frequently than before, except if we'll stretch the term romantic to something else, romantic intimacy and romantic commitment. Many young people hope to combine the delight of passionate love with security and intimacy in their romantic relationship. So in this case, we can say that romantic age is ending, but maybe romantic age is ending in our traditional interpretation. The romantic love may be just different in the near future than it was before.
But just how different might it be in the distant future? Will advances in artificial intelligence make romance something we could artificially reproduce? Scientist Sarah Merrill again.
I think, so this is completely hypothetical because I don't actually know, but in my best guess, I would say if we could, as scientists, determine the exact cocktail, we could probably mimic the intense excitement, mental, cognitive overload feeling of infatuation. I do not believe that we could mimic the feelings of attachment exactly, because there is not all infatuations become attachments. And exactly why that is not entirely clear to scientists at this point.
Kind of relieved to hear you say that, because I think we like to think of romance as being something slightly mystical and otherworldly, and it's almost a relief to know it can't completely be boiled down to an equation or a formula.
Yes, there is something about the idea of love, and love conquers all, and love is this magical, mystical thing, which working in an attachment lab with neurochemistry can really ruin for you.
I'm Afua Hirsch, and you've been listening to The Y Factor. The producer was Rose de Larrabeiti. You can listen again to this programme on the website, bbcworldservice.com/Y Factor, and discover other editions on subjects including why we talk to ourselves and why we kiss. We'd love to hear your suggestions of ideas for the programme. Email us at yfactor@bbc.com.
One of the most romantic things that Eddie's ever done, and one of the things that I cherish the most, it actually sits by my nightstand, is when we first started seeing one another, Eddie had bought this beautiful notebook that it was handmade paper, and one day I picked it up and there were love letters that he had written to me. And it wasn't with any acknowledgement. It wasn't, him, look what I got and look what I'm doing. It was just this thing that was his that, that then became mine. I would love to come home some days and pick it up and see if he had written in it. And he didn't always, but when he did, it was so special. And more than any trip we've ever taken or any gift he's ever given me, that tangible reminder of our love back then and where it has gone now. And that's just very special to me.
Thanks for listening to The Y Factor. If you'd like to hear more episodes, there's a wide range of options on our website. Visit bbcworldservice.com/Y Factor. And other World Service programmes, such as More or Less, which looks at numbers in the news, are available to download at www.bbc.com.